fashion. So we move, you know, from the 2D realm into the 3D, you know, printing space. And I would like to take again the next, you know, 20 minutes or so to introduce to 3D fashion, which is our latest technology. Let me see if I can move. Don't you work? Like that, okay. 3D fashion is our latest, let me say, technologies introduced this last May. And it's really, you know, bringing 3D printing, direct, you know, 3D printing on fabric, on textile, you know, to the fashion industry and to the textile industry. Now, I think, okay, thank you. So you will, I believe, very familiar with some of the names you heard before. I don't think you are as familiar, you know, with Stratasys. So let me try to give you, you know, a quick overview of my company. We've been, I think we're a pretty, let me say, well-known brand in the 3D printing and additive manufacturing space, because Stratasys invented actually what the most widely used technology in 3D printing, the filament one. That was, you know, way back in 1989, but I will show you a little bit more about that. But since then, you know, we progressed, you know, we became bigger. The company is now today headquartered in Israel. Last fiscal year was about, you know, 600 million worth of revenues. We're listed in the NASDAQ stock exchange, and as I mentioned, you know, we're pretty well established in the 3D printing world. Lots of patents. You know, when actually they expired, they triggered, you know, the 3D printing industry. That was way back in 2009. And of course, you know, we're still, you know, moving forward, you know, since then. As I mentioned, we play and work in the 3D printing and additive manufacturing space. And our market opportunity out there is all the manufacturing processes. And now, since, again, May this year, even the textile ones. And of course, it's at the beginning of a journey. But hopefully, you know, there will be a lot more coming and a lot of more, you know, interactions, and hopefully, you know, new opportunities for all of us, me as a Stratasys as a vendor, and you as users and of the technology out there. We have, of course, a full range of technologies now in-house, 5 different ones, but the one that we've been bringing to the textile world is based on jetting. Basically, it's not an ink, it's based on acrylic resins, but still a jetting technology. I mentioned a journey. A journey started at the beginning of the 80s, 1989, when Stratasys were founded. But I wanted to highlight a few of the dates when actually in 1998, we merged with an Israeli company. At the time, it was called Object. And Object actually created the technology that I will feature and show you today. Is this, you know, jetting technology. And it took them about 9 years to come up with the first 3D printer that actually was able to use the technology. It was called Connex, and it was the first, what we call multi-material, you know, kind of printer. Why it is important? Because it was able to mix the same way you do with inks and with pigments, you know, that you create the fantastic colors you're used to. We do exactly the same, but in the 3D world. So we started with multi-materials. We then came out with another system that had the possibility to use different materials, and then CMYK, transparency, and you know, vivid colors, you know, were born. And then finally, in 2014, the first multi-material color 3D printer was presented. And the same technology, which evolved along the years, is actually the base for what we use in 3D fashion. And then I added it actually, I must confess, last night, in May 3rd, for us was an important date because we introduced the first direct-to-textile 3D printed, you know, to the market globally. Quick overview, but as now again, you know inkjet, you know jetting. The technology for us is exactly the same, but instead of pixels, we're talking about voxels. So our, let me say, our element, or the smallest element which is needed to build and create objects is called the voxel as a 3 dimensions. It is pretty small, so the technology has a very high degree of quality because the drop the ink drop is about 14 nanometers wide. So you can imagine, it allows you to build pretty detailed objects and eventually, be used for a number of different, let me say, purposes. The main difference is that the drop comes out liquid, and then there is a curing phase where an ultraviolet lamp basically solidifies the resin, and that becomes part of the object. This is what we are used to and what we've been playing and working with customers in many different industries out there for many years. You see, anything that you basically, we can build pretty much anything, okay, in color and with a very high degree of fidelity. I shared that head because I think it's very realistic, and just to give you an example of what the technology allows you to do. And funny enough, I was really thinking that we've been working in many different industries, from, again, the traditional manufacturing space, in consumer goods, in prototyping, medical, dental, and actually textile and fashion was the latest, let me say, addition. One of them, again, a little bit more detail, I was mentioning about the materials. What allows the technology to be, let me say, so flexible and rich in the outcome is actually what we call these digital materials, which again is nothing new for you, let me say, in the ink kind of technology. But for 3D printing, this is quite unique, and there are not that many players out there who can do that. And it's about being able to mix different, let me say, materials, not only in colors. So basically, thinking colors, CMYK allows us basically to cover a pretty large gamut with over 500,000 colors that are also eventually Pantone validated. So if you have a Pantone code, you can reproduce it in 3D, but also mixing colors and transparents, so to have all the gradients, and also different shores, rigid and soft materials. And you can have, you can simulate rubber or any other kind of shore that you need. But now, you say, what does it mean to bring the technology to fashion? So I want to just share this little video that I hope will introduce, to 3D fashion. Okay, that was, just to give you a flavor. I hope, it gave you an idea. I'm sorry we don't have examples, to show you and let you touch, today, but eventually, I mean, we have, if you're interested, you can contact us and we can show you, in different places with customers in Milano or with some of our resellers, across Italy. The benefits of the technology are similar in an extent to what you heard. It's all about especially freedom of design. I think here, freedom of design, again, has a special meaning because, as I mentioned before, we're just adding one dimension. And basically, a designer is able to create from scratch any idea, anything that he can think of and dream of, he is able to then realize with 3D printing, with additive, right? And of course, the benefits of being a digital technology allow to speed up and reduce and compress the development times, especially, let me say, from prototyping, and then also sometimes in the production space. And it allows, to cut out some of the manual processes. Now, also, I think it's important to position the technology correctly. We're not talking about the volumes that you are used to in inkjet printing, for textile. This is still kind of how would they say, a niche technology. right? And you will see, you will immediately realize when you will see the, let me say, the system. So there are no rolls. We're still based on a small tray. But for us, it was important, to start. And then we will, I will explain where we're focusing and why. But I think it's an opportunity to, again, bring a completely different manufacturing method and process and technology into the textile world. Let me again now try to show you some of the examples and the things that we can do. I would start with some of the work from some international designers we've been working with in the last few years. This is, I think, also one of the dresses that you saw in the video. Every leaf of this Iris van Arpen dress was again 3D printed on fabric, and also the outside elements are providing the structure to the leaves that are making up the dress. And that was an initial kind of test. As you can see, it comes from a few years back. We've been working and refining technology and ideas over the years that led finally to the introduction of the technology this year. This is from Julia Corner. I hope it's not too dark, but you have seen is this kind of fur effect. It's all with these little, elements sticking out. It has quite a unique characteristics and sensitive effect when you touch it. And then again, it's something that can, be done. This was another set of dresses. It was called the Morpho collection from Trias 4 and Travis Fitch. The idea, the Morpho collection came actually from butterflies, the idea. And they tried to replicate not only, let me say, the patterns, but they did it with special effects. Of course, you cannot see in the image, but 3D printing and the capability of actually managing every single 3D kind of pixel, the voxel, allows you to also implement what we call a lenticular effect, which allows you to basically see different colors or images depending on the angle, that you watch basically the dress, and provides a completely different changing effect depending on where you are, depending on the, on the lights around you, and so forth. This was a capsule collection presented in New York a couple of years back. This was another one from, this is another one actually for Organic Goldstein. And again, another international designer. This was based on a kimono effect. So the precious effects and the detailed elements are all 3D printed with, giving very special effects and outcome. This year we come a little bit closer to Italy. This is something that we actually, that a customer of us, the house, and actually the company is Dilon, who is now part of the pattern group. We've been working with them. They helped us actually bring in the technology to the maturity level, especially for the production standpoint. And these are kind of some projects that they did. This one with the, let me say, collaboration of the Woolmark company. So, I think, you're also starting to see that we can work on many different kind of fabrics. And this is, again, same collection, different stylist. Just to, of course, to give you an idea, give the freedom to designers about what they can do with such a technology. This was another one which I like a lot. It's based on suede, and it was a project actually from a Middle East designer who wanted to use the technology, but basically to implement kind of classic designs. So it's called the Bedouin dress or whatever, the digital Bedouin 3D embroidery. And of course, the effect is very classic, but the realization is very modern because the technology, of course, allows you to do pretty much anything. Now, some examples a little bit more, closer, you can see, and now I will explain how basically the 3D printed parts stick and let me say adhere to the fabric underneath. These are some examples that you can print and create pretty much any shape. And within the shapes, you can have all the gradients, all the colors that you want to, of course. You can design them before, and then, you feed them into the software of the machine, and the machine will start printing, basically. These are additional, examples, more kind of dispersed or more thick, up to you. These are other ones where you can see when you start mixing more the transparencies. This is like kind of simulating the skin of a snake. And this is something that some of our customers have been playing because of now of the restrictions of using that kind of material. Another, kind of example. And these are also, let me say, two more. That is a T-shirt where the same technology would be, again, in that case, designing and drawing a tiger that was on a T-shirt, but you could do pretty much anything. And on the right-hand side, you can see also that the printer that I will show you later is also able to print on finished, kind of dresses or garments, okay? So one of the ideas of the companies and the designers is that you can use the technology also to repurpose, existing stocks or what you're not using, or eventually change it or customize and personalize, pretty much, let me say, as you want. These again, some of the examples. Where do we see the technology used? We already have a few customers. Actually, they are here in Italy, who are kind of medium-sized to small, let me say, manufacturers and converters. They are active in different fields. They work in, let me say, in fashion, for dresses, for garments, but they're also being using the technology in real projects, actually, for shoes, for example, bags, and other fashion accessories, and so on. Of course, the technology being able to work on pretty much any fabric can be used, to decorate tapes, clothes, accessories, and all different kind of leathers as well. How does the technology work? If you're curious, it says, okay, there's no glue, no primer between the 3D printed, let me say, elements and the fabric underneath. The adhesion is mechanic. How does it work? Generally speaking, basically, when the droplet gets out of the jet head, is liquid, so it is able to penetrate the fabric, and then when it is solidified by the UV lamp, it becomes one thing with the fabric itself, right? So it's just mechanical adhesion. How deep will it go? It depends on the fabric and how you manage the technology. So there is how do you say, you can customize and play with the, how do you say, with the machine, actually, with the technology, depending on what you want to achieve. So you can actually penetrate more, let me say, going also to the other side of the fabric. You can stay at the same level, or you can stay higher and eventually grip to the different filaments. And of course, it depends also on the kind of fabric that you are using, okay? This depends also on the effects that you want to obtain in the end. Fabric-wise, we've been testing on a wide variety of different fabrics, and we have found basically no limitations, being cotton, linen, polyesters, suede, even leather. Now, as you can imagine, the more the leather is treated, the more, let me say, you need to work and optimize, but it can be done. And anywhere is fine with leather, let me say, as well. In terms of certifications, we've been, let me say, passing, let me say, the most common ones for basically, let me say, washable. So whatever is 3D printed, can be washed and can be exposed to sun rays, no problem. We're working now on a further set of certifications. We have a clear goal of meeting EcoPassport kind of certification down the road in the next 6 to 12 months. And, the BU, the business unit, and the development team is very busy also improving the sustainability of the materials, coming up with new resins that will be, let me say, more recyclable and more sustainable down the road. In terms of how you develop and how you create what you have seen, of course, you can start in using pretty much an array of different, softwares. You can use more traditional CAD, 3D CAD systems from SolidWorks, CATIA, Siemens, Creo, Autodesk, you name it. More specific design softwares, Rhino being, I think, the most widely used, or even the rendering software. Now, rendering like, Keyshot, Adobe, software packages now have a new type of file that is, let me say, natively understood by the machine, so you can export a 2D rendering and have it 3D printed on your machine. So to summarize, what are the values, what we believe, are the key elements of such a technology? Freedom of design, so really enable, empower the designers. Users will come eventually, I don't know, if you want to use this machine, this kind of machine on demand, you will open it up to users eventually. And of course, being digital allows you to shrink the time to market, the creation of new items, new garments, heavy personalization, and of course, bespoke and short series. Now, quick overview of the system of the machine. As of today, we have one. It's called J850 Textile. This is how it looks. It is, let me say, the same kind of system and machine, the J850, that we also sell to any other company for rapid prototyping, but it has been modified and tailored for the textile industry. The main body is where the tray is with the heads and where the action happens. The cabinet on the right-hand side is meant for the cartridges containing the resins. And this is a little bit, how, if you open up the cabinet, you have multiple cartridges, so you don't run out of them. And you can have, 8 different ones at any given time that allows you to have the full spectrum of the possible, let me say, effects and outcome. And different families of material, the Vero family is more rigid, the Agilus is more softer. You can have that transparent, ultra white, ultra black to really achieve any kind of outcome that you're looking for. This is again, typical configuration, some of the outcome. This is how it works. We basically created removable trays. The trays are not big. I know that just says you're used to the big rolls, and some of the interactions we had with some of the companies in the room and other customers, where of course it says, where are you coming out with such a a technology on a roll? It says maybe down the road, we don't know. We have a roadmap of a 3 to 5 years roadmap. So what you see is just the beginning. So we have improvements. We will increase the speed. We will increase the number of materials, and so on and so forth. But the basic, is just having a tray. It's good because the tray allows you to put, let me say, a bigger piece of fabric, 2 meters per 2 meters, and then you can move it around. Maybe not ideal, but still, allows you to cover a larger space, and the machine will be able to reconfigure and find exactly where it left from and move it to the next one. I forgot to say that what, meaning 3D printing ultimately means that you can print something that is, very thin, up to 5 centimeters. Of course, I don't think it will happen many times, because it's like maybe if you want to do an arm or with 5 centimeters thick, but still that what the technology allows you to do. And the standard print is 25 centimeters high, but this is not needed, of course. It's interchangeable. We've been again working with Deloitte to really understand how a machine can be also used in a production environment, managed accordingly, and so on. I come to my last slide. I think you heard enough about sustainability, so we cannot be, less than what you heard. We believe, and this is also, the industry saying that additive is very sustainable in itself, because as a technology, you only use what is needed. There is no scrap, no waste, no nothing. Still, we're using plastic. I mean, on the other side, you have different kind of issues with the more traditional inkjet, kind of technologies. Here we're using resins, acrylic resins. These are plastic, so we're looking at how to improve from a recycling and disposing, of such let me say, elements and resins and materials. Anyway, Stratasys, wants to lead the industry. Talking now additive manufacturing, we created, among other with others, what is called actually the Additive Manufacturing Green Trade Group. So it's an association who wants to promote sustainability within the additive industry and really promote the concept of mindful manufacturing, which is trying to use, for us, it's about additive more and more, to allow, more, let me say, local manufacturing, leaner supply chains, and less waste, again, to try to achieve a better and more sustainable kind of industry. If you're interested, that's where you can find some additional information, and I'm open for questions, of course. And thank you very much.
Sharon's got a question.
Okay. As I said, you know, we passed the certifications. I should have shown you a video. That's one of my colleagues during the Milano Design Week. We had a big booth at Super Studio in Via Tortona, and she actually, you know, took her jacket and put it into the printer, and she had the same kind of drawing printed, and then it's let me say, filmed in the washing machine. So I think, you know, the standard is 40 degrees washing machine. I think it can go up to 60. Okay. It has been done and properly certified from that washing, you know, certification. I think it's ISO. I don't remember. I'm not, sorry, the expert, but it's you can put it in a washing machine.
You briefly touched on the recyclability of it. When you think about sustainability and the new regulation, the end of life of garments, it's one of the biggest issue we have. And we tend to think about a monomaterial as a solution for mechanical recyclability, specifically more than chemical. Adding this quantity of acrylic resin, how do you see it in terms of end of life of garments?
So as I said, you know, we're working on it. The idea is to develop better chemistry in the material so that it will be more easily recyclable and manageable, you know, at the end of life. It is something that we're working on. Today, what we're using is exactly the same things, but we're well aware of the needs of the industry, and we're working, you know, to try to meet the industry requirements.
And in terms of recycled content, do you have anything in terms of recycled resin, or it's just virgin?
No, we have it in the other, let me say, in the other technologies. For example, in the, let me say, we call it mass production because it's the kind of the highest or the most performing powder-based kind of technology. There, for example, we have materials, powder that is based on biomaterials, so it's fully recyclable. Here, as I said, acrylic resin photosensible is a little trickier, we know that, but the guys in the labs are working on it, and so we hope to have new announcements to make next year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Steve.
Thanks. Do you see this as just decorative, or could it do things like zips, buttons, and make those integral to the
part? We do buttons, we do other things. As I said, it's a beginning of a journey, so we're learning ourselves. I must say, and I was impressed, I am impressed at the companies who have been using the technology now. Dylan has been using really for more than maybe a couple of years, but the others they just started 6 months, 3 months, and what they achieve and what they produce is amazing. Definitely, it can be used for buttons. And I don't have the images here. For example, what they did was, you know, it's like having button with the same kind of look and feel of the fabric underneath. And again, instead of, you know, having them done on purpose, you can 3D print them and you know, put them, you know, on the fabric. That's as an example. So definitely, the technology is very versatile. So it can be used to do buttons and other things. Yeah, I mean, fashion accessories is again different, but we already have customers who are actively using it for the industry. Now, also where we've been again starting in terms of focus, sales engagement has been Italy and France, because we think, of course, that there is the highest interest and how can I say, openness, especially in the high fashion, you know, top of fashion, of course. I mean, not only the margins, always looking for innovation, but we see now that again, the more people know the technology, they learn, you know, how to use it and how to make it also cost effective, because it's again, it is expensive, you know, it's not, let's say, mass production yet, but we plan to push the envelope and move forward.